Hello everybody. The previous video inspired great thought into the topic of consciousness. It inspired so much thought that I came to see the different levels of consciousness. I want to talk about that. Previously, I mentioned that here on Earth we go through 4 phases, which are the mineral, which evolves into the plant life, which evolves into the animal life, which evolves into the human animal life. And within each life, we experience all the root species. Well, this applies to consciousness. And I stated that the mineral state of being is it's the most dense consciousness, which means the least evolved consciousness. And that our consciousness is the most evolved because it's the least dense. To elaborate more on that, minerals are below the ground. They never see above. Plants are rooted to the ground, but they get to see above. They are just limited to where they're rooted at. That is their entire perception of reality. So their consciousness is limited to just growing or time passing by and going through the cycles set forth by nature. The animal is a more conscious consciousness. It's less dense than the plant life. It's no longer attached to the ground. Well, the most primitive forms are, such as, let's say, worms. But even worms can come out of the ground, right? Microbial life in the deepest levels of the ground could probably still survive in the higher levels of the ground. As well as above. In the animal life, the more evolved animal life, consciousness, you become an apex predator in a sense. You master your environment. What comes to mind is I can't wait to see that on playback. I'm not sure what happened there. It's funny how I said that at 333 live. So for the animal life, especially the apex predators, and what comes to mind is the praying mantis, which delivers a knockout blow, which means it's more like a boxer. Life is pretty damn well mastered, see? Same applies to the wolf and the bear and the shark. The biggest snakes, the most ferocious snakes. Everything that is an apex predator. Of course, there's always the family unit that also develops in the animal species, such as a group of groundhogs, animals that have their homes beneath the ground but come above the ground to forage, and they watch each other's backs at all times because there's always predators looming around and they must protect themselves. more eyes are better than one pair, so there's kind of a telepathic communication at all times, and sometimes audible noise, which relates the message even more forcefully. Once consciousness masters every one of those root species, it evolves to the consciousness of man. Well, the consciousness of man, the animal evolved to the highest level here on this earth, is the least dense of all, because it's able to perceive more of reality. And the reason for that is because of our creative, innovative senses, which do not allow us to live a life of monotonous routine. Most people have, unfortunately, a monotonous routine nowadays. But there are still some individuals out there, such as myself, who find everything non-monotonous. People such as myself always question the truth about everything. And what I've come to realize is that even among the human-animal species, consciousness can evolve and has evolved and will evolve and is currently evolved to higher levels among the different individuals. So in other words, there is a structure to how consciousness evolves on this earth and how we all operate. So imagine you're a consciousness that has experienced all the root species, okay? Then you must be a highly evolved consciousness because you have all that experience behind you to draw from. To move from one to the other, from one subroot to another subroot. It takes evolution within each subroot, mastery of the subroot. Like, for example, the life of being a parent and showing pure love to your kids. I've done that. I know I've done that. I've done that. But not in this lifetime. But I feel in my heart that that experience is mine. I've been the bad guy, the pirate, if you will, or the warrior, the guy who, for whatever reason, decided to kill. And killing is always bad. I feel I have experienced every level of consciousness in the animal-human species. I feel that regardless of how many more lifetimes I would live here on this earth, I've already done it all. Because I have done it all. I feel it in my heart. I feel I am at the master level of consciousness within the animal-human species. Which makes me question if within this reality we know just the animal, the plant, the mineral, the plant, the animal, and the human-animal species. Plane taking off. If I have mastered every consciousness of the most conscious being on this earth, Where am I going next? Because it means that I'll master all the different consciousnesses on this earth, right? The mineral, the plant, the animal, and the human animal. Because it means I've been through all of them, right? So where do I go from here? I can't go down. It's redundant. And the one thing about universal knowledge is it's that everything is symmetrical. And within symmetry, there's a cycle of life. And that cycle of life is portrayed by the DNA molecule, which has in the middle a straight line going forward and a sine and a cosine. Two snakes, if you will. Undulating forever. The balance and the counterbalance, the good and the evil. That's where the eternity symbol comes from. That's where getting stuck in a loop comes from. That's where you can go backwards and forwards and whichever way you want comes from. So what's next for me? That's the question. And throughout all my research in recent, I would say for the last 18 months, but especially in the last few months, it's just elevated to a level that I can't explain it. My consciousness is just continuously growing in awareness of reality, of perception of truths, because everything has become a question of truth. As I experience, I'm also an observer. Within the moment, I instantly notice everything. It's just weird. Well, having given a lot of thought about all these different levels of consciousness, I've come to conclude that there is a next level. The next level for the most evolved consciousness of Earth, like mine, is the less dense body. Now, when you think about minerals, they are below the ground, so they never even see above. The plants, they're rooted to the ground, so they don't really see more than what their root is, which is growth. And then the animals, they're stuck in the survival instincts or apex predator instincts, the family unit versus the conscious predator. But still stuck to the ground, even if it is a bird. Even birds. Even butterflies. The survival instinct makes them travel such far distances. They're using their power of flight to survive. So for us, we're above the ground, and the next less dense level means we're able to take off the ground. But what does that mean? It means that we go from the fifth dimension, which is truly the dimension we should all be in. If people are stuck in the third dimension, it's because they are disconnected from their spiritual self, which is in the ether dimension, the fourth dimension, because 3 and 4 are really one. So we're really in the fifth dimension. Well, that would imply that by following the sequence of the mathematics, 1 plus 1 equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5, 5 plus 3 equals 8, So the next dimension would be eighth dimensional in terms of our evolution. Well, what does eighth dimensional mean? I have no clue whatsoever. Which poses the question, how many levels above that there are? And the reality is there are infinite levels above that as well, but it always follows the Pythagorean Theorem. Well, eternity doesn't go only one way. Eternity goes both ways, including to the bottom, below the mineral state. And we have no clue whatsoever what below the mineral state is. We just call it dark matter because we can't see it. Well, dark matter makes up 95% of space, maybe more. So perhaps that's a different form of evolution. So what we consider nothingness is really just a different type of evolution, a de-evolving evolution. There are people walking on this earth right now that have the consciousness that will reincarnate in the next lifetime into an animal again, because their mind is just not ready for the human experience. They have to experience the animal experience, and they will continue to de-evolve in the animal experience until they stabilize themselves. So in essence, based on our free will, whether it's manipulated or not, we have the power to evolve or de-evolve into whatever. We just have to follow the laws of the Pythagorean Theorem. And don't try to break the blueprint that is Prime Creator, which is the blueprint of everything in existence, Prime Creation. Follow the blueprint, and you can go wherever you want, consciously. And above this current highest level of human consciousness, there's a whole lot more truth than there is now, because it is eighth dimensional. More ways to look at the same things till the right answers are more accurately interpreted. So a less dense form of human could be considered an angel or a ghost, because even within the next levels, the duality of good and evil will forever exist. The sine and the cosine, the intertwining snakes among the straight line of life. Perhaps there are more of those. That's what we call our DNA. Anyways, the idea is consciousness forever evolves in both directions. The four that we've come to understand on this earth, what's above and what's below. Which means that you bet your ass that every single one of the stars that is real is a living being that used to be human at some point, maybe. Or perhaps is coming down to become human at some point, maybe. There's all the dark matter we can't even see. Same applies to the other side, right? So then the question becomes, if everything becomes an experience for all to experience, how is it possible that everyone is balanced in where they should be at? Well, the answer to that is there should be just the right amount of evil and just the right amount of good. And these concepts are born out of the different chakras within the body, because their minds are what dictate reality. So depending on which chakras are in control is how you perceive life. So for a society as a whole, there has to be a mutual set of agreements, right? Golden rules, if you will. If we don't have that in our society at all, we just have brainwash, which has bred a different level of consciousness. A consciousness stuck in a loop, forever in a loop. Disconnected from everything else. There is no societal structure that we all agree upon. We're all divided. We're all enemies amongst ourselves. You can't walk down the street without hearing something that spooks you, because that's the general level of energy in the air, the fear frequency. You can't look at another person that's passing by as a potential friend. You look at them as a potential evildoer. So everyone is always on edge and no one ever really connects. So you see, the different levels of consciousness can also apply to the unit, the whole, all of us connecting to each other. That is the supercomputer of this world. We manipulate it. We let evil manipulate it. How about we band together as good and start manipulating it ourselves? Just by thinking things, you are inserting thoughts into the one giant computer brain we've created, which in theory should be in accordance with Earth, since Earth is alive too. Perhaps Earth herself may have been human at some point, or is on her way to becoming human. Point is, her consciousness is very evolved, and our consciousness should be in mutual agreement with hers. So is our consciousness in mutual agreement with hers right now? No. We're killing nature. So for someone like me, the only answer has to be to find the optimal, the absolute best level of consciousness within this reality, that I am able to, in a sense, tap into what I will become after I become eighth dimensional. In a sense, I want to see with the eyes of that dimension within this one. Because if I'm able to do so, I feel that I will be able to somehow help in curing the insanity that has overtaken Earth. That is why I'm learning as much as I'm learning, and that is why I will be taking a trip to Magnetic North. I feel that at the pure source of Earth's consciousness, in the very center, I will be able to have that dialogue of what the consciousness of Earth wants with what the consciousness of overall humanity wants, without the brainwashing, and somehow figure out a way to manifest that into reality.